The scene where Yaakov meets Rachel is actually one of my favorites in the whole of Tanakh. I think it definitely should have been made into a Hollywood movie because that's how it plays out. Yaakov, this new stranger to town, comes and he meets this beautiful lady by the well, and he doesn't yet know who she is. The shepherds tell him this is Rachel approaching, and suddenly he flexes his muscles and he lifts this giant stone off the well that the whole village combined normally have to do it together. He suddenly has this incredible strength, and he just swoops in, doesn't say anything to her, and just gives her a kiss. And then he's kind of ruined the macho moment by bursting into tears, and there's all different reasons given why he cries at that point. Some say he's so overcome with emotion, some say it's to do with what's going to happen in the future that he's sad about, and some say he regrets not getting there sooner because now that he's met her, he's like, wow, I've missed out on all this time with her. But it definitely plays out as if he just sees her and falls in love. And it says very soon after we're introduced to Rachel, it describes her. It says she's beautiful of form, beautiful of appearance. So she's got a good figure. She's very good looking. And then it says Yaakov loves her. I mean, he's barely got to know her, and suddenly he loves her. It just doesn't sound very Yaakov Avinu kind of thing to do, to just, on a very superficial level, just fall in love with a woman for her looks. So all the commentators pick up on this. And there kind of seems to be two schools of thought, which I found really interesting. Some say you can't read the Pesukim like that. It's obviously not about her looks. He just instinctively recognizes that she is the one for him, and they connect on a really, really deep level. And he knows that Rachel is the person that he's destined to marry. And so he loves her because they have this natural affinity. That's the Or HaChaim's approach. And Radak actually says something really interesting, which blew me away a bit. He actually says, even for Tzaddikim, it's really important that you're attracted to your wife because you want to have a good marriage. You want to have kids together. And of course, you need to be attracted to each other in order to do that. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's not superficial. It's meant to be a happy marriage. And he says to learn Torah, to receive Nevuah, all of these things, you need to be in a happy frame of mind to do. Yaakov Avinu didn't have Nevuah for years when he thinks Yosef is dead. King Shaul, he was in a deep depression, and he had to have music played to him the whole time to cheer him up, to be able to function. So happiness is really, really important. It's not superficial at all. And it got me thinking that actually this is the Sedra where Yaakov marries Rachel and Leah and both of their maidservants. And if you look back over all of the last Sedras, we see how each of the Ovos and Imahos met each other. And they're all very different approaches, and they're different ways of dating that we still have nowadays. Avram and Sarah essentially grew up together. She was his niece, and they got to know each other because they were in each other's homes. They knew each other maybe from around the Shabbos table. Then you get Yitzchak and Rivka, which is very much a shidduch. Yitzchak sent Eliezer off to find Rivka. He never even meets her. She appears, and they straight away, it says again, Yitzchak loved her. Why? Because he had a natural affinity to her. She really reminds him of his mother, and he recognizes her good midah straight away, and they have a really good marriage. It says that he loves her, even though it was a shidduch and he didn't know her beforehand. Then Yaakov, when he marries both of his wives, it's completely different. Rachel he falls in love with, it's love at first sight. And Leah, we see much later on in their relationship that he does grow to love her after she's had all her children, but essentially it's an arranged marriage which neither of them have agreed to. He doesn't even know who she is until he wakes up the next morning, realizes it's Leah and not Rachel. So obviously we don't do that nowadays. But it's interesting that in each of these approaches, a good result comes from each of these marriages. They go on to have amazing children and all of the Shavatim, and you can't really fault any of those systems. So sometimes nowadays when people are struggling with dating, not one approach is going to work for everyone. Sometimes you do just get to meet the right person sitting around the Shabbos table or through good friends. And sometimes you do need to be set up with a perfect stranger because maybe it's the right person, but you're never going to come across them otherwise. And you need to be open to meeting somebody in that way. And sometimes it can still have a really good end result, a really good marriage. And sometimes you don't get to know each other straight away, but it's still good. And you still really get to know each other over the course of a lifetime, which of course is what marriage is all about. So if you're at this stage, then hang in there. There are lots of good ways to meet good people, and they all seem to work. Have a good week and a good Shabbos.